Order. I call this meeting to order. This is Standing Committee on Natural Resources and Economic Development. I'm John White. I'm the MLA for Glace Plain Dominion. I'm the chair of this committee. Today we're here to hear from presenters regarding the challenges in the agriculture sector. I ask you to please turn off your phones or put them on silent. In the case of an emergency, we would walk out this back door here and go up to Grand Parade to wait to be accounted for there. I'll now ask committee members to introduce themselves, starting with my colleague here on the left, Dave Ritchie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dave Ritchie, MLA for Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, and Salmon River.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kent Smith. I am the MLA for the Eastern Shore.
Hi, Johnny McDonald, MLA for Hants East.
Good afternoon and welcome. Melissa Sheehy-Richard, I'm the MLA for Hants West.
Hi, Lisa LaChance, MLA Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island.
Good afternoon, Kendra Coombs, MLA for Cape Breton Centre, Whitney Pier.
Good afternoon, Carmen Kerr, MLA for Annapolis.
Good afternoon, Ronnie LeBlanc, Clare.
I would also like to note the presence of Chief Legislative Counsel Gordon Hebb on my right and Gordon Nusebe, which is Legislative Committee Clerk on my left. So now I'll ask the witnesses to introduce themselves, and I'm going to come back for opening remarks. So we'll start over here with Ms. Hughes on the left, please.
I'm Heather Hughes, Executive Director of Policy and Corporate Services in the Department of Agriculture.
Good afternoon, everyone. Loretta Robichaud, Deputy Minister for the Department of Agriculture.
Good afternoon, Carolyn Vanderheide, Executive Director with the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture.
Good afternoon, I'm Amy Vanderheide. I'm the Chair of Chicken Farmers of Nova Scotia.
Good afternoon, I'm Chris Bell. I'm the Executive Director for Chicken Farmers of Nova Scotia.
Just for the committee members, I just want to recognize that Alan Melvin is the president of Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture. We got word he was sick this weekend. I know you folks received an email, right? So the floor is open for questions, but before I do that, opening remarks. And I said I was going to go that order, right? So now I'm back to Ms. Hughes for opening remarks, please.
Actually, Deputy Robichaud will provide the opening remarks for agriculture.
Deputy Robichaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm always happy to have the opportunity to talk about our work in the department and what we're doing to support Nova Scotia's agriculture sector. As we all know, agriculture is vital. It's a vital part of life in Nova Scotia. The sector employs 5,000 people across the province. It literally puts food on our tables, and it drives our economy, especially in rural Nova Scotia and in our rural communities. Last year, Nova Scotia farms and agri-food operations produced $752 million in farm cash receipts. I'm happy to say that was a 12% increase over the year before. That's really good news. Of course, the sector still has challenges. It's at the mercy of weather, pests, diseases, and global markets. But challenges aren't always a bad thing. They often lead to opportunities and for further innovation and advancement. And we're here to help farmers overcome challenges and seize opportunities. Some of the things farmers and producers are facing right now are rising cost, labor shortages, and adapting to climate change. They're still recovering from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. They feel the repercussions of the war in the Ukraine. Both of these events cause shifts in the global marketplace, leading to increased costs. We've seen firsthand the threat posed by avian influenza to the poultry industry. Our producers have strong biosecurity practices in place, and they remain vigilant. We're on top of the latest developments and working with producers to equip them with information to manage their flocks and prepare for potential future outbreaks. Weather is also a factor in agriculture, and we're seeing more extreme weather events. Many were affected by Hurricane Fiona and the polar vortex. And this year, dry conditions already have people concerned. Farmers are constantly adapting to changing conditions, and we are helping them to do that. For example, last fall, the Department of Agriculture created the new Season Extension Enhancement Program. The idea here is to extend the growing season, adapt to climate change, and open new market opportunities. Through this program, we've invested $5 million to help farmers invest in innovation and labor-saving technologies. Another key way that we support our farmers is through cost-shared funding agreements with our federal partners. Earlier this month, we announced the latest agreement. It's called the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership, which I'll also refer as SCAP here today. It's injecting more than $46 million in joint funding into our agricultural sector over the next 5 years. The money supports more than a dozen programs that help farmers and agri-food producers. This agreement also funds our business risk management programs. They provide protection against income and production losses due to natural events outside their control. These programs offer supports such as insurance, income stability, investment matching, and disaster relief. They help farmers manage risk, and they remain productive through the ups and downs of business. Sometimes something happens that demands more support than these programs offer. That's when we kick in with other types of help. Hurricane Fiona did considerable damage to farms and other agricultural businesses. So we arranged $19 million in provincial funding to support farmers through the Fiona Agriculture Disaster Assistance Program. This funding helped cover expenses not covered by other available programs. In February, we had the polar vortex. The impact on some farmers' crops was severe. And although we won't know the full impact until summer, we know growers will need our help to recover. So we announced $15 million to help cover some of the costs they'll be facing over the next few years. We can expect more weather extremes and other impacts of climate change, and that means working differently. We're helping our sector adapt and make operations sustainable for the long haul. That's a key focus of the new federal-provincial agreement that I just mentioned. For example, the new Resilient Agriculture Landscape Program supports farmers as they build their commitment to environmental stewardship. They can do this by adapting farm practices that respond to climate change and decrease greenhouse gas emissions. Ultimately, we want a healthy, sustainable agriculture sector. We want to see it succeeding in export markets. And we also want to see it providing more healthy, local food for Nova Scotians. That's why we're developing a food and beverage strategy to enhance awareness, to improve access, and increase local production of healthy local food. We consulted with Nova Scotians in December, and their summary and their feedback is available now on our webpage in the What We Heard report. Now we're working with multiple government departments to incorporate that feedback and actually develop the strategy. It's a win-win strategy. It'll support the sector, and it'll also help Nova Scotians access healthy local food. One of the things we heard people want that we're already doing is getting more local food into public institutions. We've invested $900,000 in pilot projects like the one we announced in Northwood to connect farmers with the province's largest kitchens. There's a lot more I could say, but I will end with sharing my pride in this innovative sector, in our department's work to help it thrive. Together, we're working on the challenges, and together, we're always looking for new opportunities. So I look forward today to expanding on that as you ask your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vanderheide.
Thank you. And before I get started, I do want to share our President, Alan Melvin's regrets for not being able to join us today. We're really happy to be here today, and we're very much encouraged by the mere fact that this was identified as a key topic for this committee. The NSFA represents over 90% of all primary agriculture production in Nova Scotia, which is just over 2,000 registered farm businesses primarily run by Nova Scotian farm families. These members represent a diversity of farm operations across the province, ranging in size and commodity type, from eggs to wild blueberries to flowers. Some farms specialize in direct-to-consumer marketing, while others focus on selling their products for further processing. Our vision at the Federation is a prosperous and sustainable future for Nova Scotia farms and farmers. Farming, along with other resource industries like fishing and forestry, is the backbone to our rural communities. Nova Scotia's agriculture industry supports environmental sustainability through the preservation of critical habitats, improving soil health and water quality, and supporting climate change efforts. There are many benefits to growing our agriculture industry, such as food security enhancements, reducing our carbon footprint, promoting environmental stewardship, providing jobs in rural communities, and bolstering economic growth. While farming may be one of the province's oldest occupations, it's also an industry that has innovated and evolved at a rapid pace. Farms have improved their productivity and efficiencies through significant adoption of technology over the last generation. As mentioned, farm cash receipts continue to grow, reaching over just $752 million in 2022. Yet our farm profitability continues to be challenged for about half a decade in this province. Our farmers are price takers, and they cannot recover all of their costs that they're having as their costs of inputs continue to rise. This is beginning to take a toll on our farmers' mental health. Based on a 2021 national survey, 76% of farms were classified as experiencing moderate or high perceived stress. 20% of farmers experience moderate to severe anxiety disorders. 20% of farmers experience depressive disorders, and suicide ideation is over 2 times higher in farmers than in the general population. Some of the stressors our farmers identify include finances, administrative burdens, weather, family disagreements, and long hours. These stats make it clear we need to support our farms in overcoming the challenges they face, not only to protect their mental health and wellness, but to ensure the stability of our food system here in Nova Scotia. The agriculture industry is influenced by various policy directives that span different levels of government and across departments. Changes such as the implementation of a higher minimum wage, carbon tax, or climate change targets can affect the industry. Therefore, it's crucial to consider the potential impact of policy decisions on agriculture and to engage in constructive dialogue between policymakers and industry stakeholders to ensure a sustainable and resilient future. I would like to highlight a few key priorities that would support a sustainable agriculture industry. So we must view the industry as a whole ecosystem, recognizing there's input suppliers, food processors, distributors, consumers, etc. Farmers are only successful if the whole ecosystem is successful. Agricultural land is, of course, essential to our industry, and efforts need to be focused on ensuring agricultural land is protected, healthy, and accessible. And then our people are our greatest assets. However, we're projecting a significant labor gap into 2029. Efforts are needed to recruit and retain our workforce and farm operators, and our farms must be profitable to be able to achieve this, and for new entrants to see a future here in the industry. The impact of climate change is both positive and negative. While changes in growing seasons have allowed for crop diversification and extended growing seasons and extended production, extreme weather events have increased and have caused significant challenges. We are heavily dependent on weather and climate, and efforts need to be focused on improving climate change impacts. Our farms continue to take on increased risk, whether it's related to climate, market, disease, or rising costs. Farms need effective risk management programs because it's not a matter of if the next weather event or market disruption occurs, but when. Like all rural industries, we're dependent on rural infrastructure. Without access to quality internet or cellular networks, businesses are challenged to use technology in the field to update their web presence and market their products. And once products are marketed, the value of product is often affected by the rough rural roads it travels over before reaching its final destination. Agriculture is a complex industry facing many challenges, but it's an industry that supports our rural communities, contributes to our economy, and enhances our ecosystem. Farming is a noble career, and it's a vital industry with tremendous opportunities for the future. I'm looking forward to today's discussion, and hopefully we can tackle these challenges and support our current and future generation of farmers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vanderheide, I understand yours is a PowerPoint presentation as well?
Yep.
Ready to go when you are.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us here today. Chicken Farmers of Nova Scotia is a commodity board which was created under the Natural Products Act. We administer the supply management system for chicken in the province. Our role is to ensure the supply of chicken meets demand, that farmers adhere to our national on-farm food safety and animal welfare program, and that farmers receive a fair price for their chicken. Our farms are case studies in how sound policy can keep agricultural operations sustainable. The poultry and ag industries have been key drivers of Nova Scotia's rural economies for decades. We have grown steadily thanks to supply management. We still face challenges like every farmer. Labor is scarce, inflation is high, and weather is increasingly unpredictable. Unique to us are threats like avian influenza, and some of our challenges are too large for even a stable industry like ours to tackle alone. The latest agricultural census says poultry and ag farms accounted for more than 1/4 of all farm revenues in Nova Scotia in 2020. Estimated farm gate receipts for broiler chickens in 2022 were almost $130 million. That money flows through farmers, their employees, to a wide range of services and suppliers in the local business and community groups in rural Nova Scotia. Almost 85% of operations are in the Annapolis Valley, and the others are in 6 counties across Nova Scotia. Health-conscious consumers have made chicken their protein of choice, and the chicken industry is a good investment. Chicken was more than 40% of all meat consumed in Canada in 2021. Production of Nova Scotia chicken farms has grown on an average of 2.4% per year over the last decade. The family farm is alive and well in Nova Scotia. Between 2005 and 2021, Saskatchewan lost 25% of their producers and doubled their average farm size. Here, the number of producers increased by 8%, and the average farm size grew at the same rate as total production. Roughly 2/3 of farms remain at or below the average today. Our industry renewing itself as today's generation take over from their parents and new farmers join the industry. That's the good news. Energy costs for heating our farms are the largest on-farm cost after feed, chick, and labor. Energy fluctuates more than other costs and it soars like it has recently. It hurts. The July 1st carbon tax will only make it worse. We hear it said that supply management lets us pass that cost on to the processor. That may be true, but the processor's sustainability is very crucial to our success. We would like to see specific financial supports for livestock farmers to convert to lower cost, greener energy, and ask that you support all farming fuels exempt from the new carbon tax. When COVID and AI threatened our industry, we noted gaps in our emergency response preparedness. We developed a new emergency response plan, and we appreciated your government's help with funding that project. Where we need your help now is in business risk management and laboratory capacity. Existing BRM programs offer limited help to poultry farmers in crisis. The Nova Scotia Poultry Insurance Program covers just one disease, and total funds available are limited to whatever the industry has paid in. We would like to see a poultry insurance program underwritten by the government that covers more perils and costs that are not covered by the current BRM program. During the avian influenza outbreak last year, we had to rely on out-of-province labs to test for the disease. This would have been true for other highly contagious livestock diseases like African swine fever or BSE, mad cow disease. We would like to see a new lab in Nova Scotia. At minimum, we would like to have access to these key services in other labs in the region protected by formal agreements. Technology is also critical to our ability to maintain animal welfare standards. Elaborate systems monitor and control all aspects of our barn environments. Alarms warn us if our birds and the economic return they represent are threatened. Reliable internet and cellular infrastructure are critical to our success. The Internet for Nova Scotia initiative is welcome, but has not yet reached all of our rural operations. Build Nova Scotia has yet to put forward a plan to address spotty cell service, and none of these services are low cost in rural Nova Scotia. We would ask that the government to prioritize the improvement of rural cell service and work with other jurisdictions in Canada to address issues of affordability. Chicken farmers continue to invest their time and money into our farms. It's a legacy, it's a passion, and it's our lifestyle. But it's also part of an industry that generates wealth beyond our farms and supports local communities, and we think that's worth investing in for all Nova Scotians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, as I will open the floor for questioning, a reminder that to wait until I call your name so your microphone turns on red, as mine is, so that Legislative TV can record your statement and your sentences. I will maintain a speakers list, so I'll ask members just to give me a wave to let me know who's up. Carmen's up first. Carmen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to everyone for presenting. You mentioned on the screen the lack of internet and cell service being a major challenge, and especially amongst rural Nova Scotians in the industry. And you've raised this today. I mean, several farmers, I grew up on a farm, know several farmers, represent a lot of farmers. They've raised it a number of times. 14 months ago, I did raise it in the legislature, and I did write a quote down from the Minister of Economic Development. This is concerning cell gaps. This absolutely remains a barrier to economic and social development and is a safety concern. You know, not much has happened for several months. I think in this very committee, we brought up the same topic and no information was provided, but 3 months after that, I did get a letter sent to me, not telling me much, but acknowledging that the cell is an issue for rural Nova Scotia. All to say, was the Deputy Minister and her department consulted during the cell gap study that is currently taking place? And if so, could she elaborate on those findings? Thank you.
Deputy Minister Robichaud?
I apologize. Could he repeat the question, please?
Emily Kerr.
Sure. You know, just discussing the times we brought up the lack of cell service throughout the province. We know it's an issue for the agriculture industry. I've brought it up several times here in this committee as well. And I'm wondering if the Deputy Minister in the Agriculture Department has been consulted during this cell gap study that apparently is alive and well but not being shared. Thank you.
MLA Robichaud. Sorry, Deputy Minister Robichaud. I'm all over the place today, sorry.
Okay. You might want to mention to my minister that I've been elevated to MLA today, but thank you very much for the question. And yes, the coverage and cell service in rural Nova Scotia in particular is a critically important subject for us. We recognize that producers actually need that capacity to do their business, not only in agriculture, but we hear the same comments for seafood and aquaculture as well. It is critically important, and for our part, we were part of the consultation and were consulted to provide feedback when that analysis took place. Thank you.
Emily Lachance.
I also thank you for being here, and really great to see everyone and get an update. And I also wanted to follow up on some of the discussion in agriculture. So in estimates, you know, we talked about the development of the food and beverage strategy, and I know the What We Heard document was there. I think one of the other questions was around the baseline point. So if the government has a goal of local food consumption, you know, establishing a baseline and some urgency around that, because we're, you know, almost 2 years into a mandate to do so. So I'm wondering if you can talk about where we're at with establishing that baseline, and if actually in the course of the consultations that you did for the food and beverage strategy, did stakeholders bring forward alternative numbers that they would think it would be important to consider? So sort of what's the discussion been around that baseline number, and when will that be established, and when will we know? Because I think, you know, on one hand there's sort of accountability for a major commitment, and then it also has very real impacts. So, you know, we've have heard from the farmers markets of Nova Scotia, and they've seen cuts in their food coupon program, and partially that's been, you know, blamed on, or I'm trying to think of a better word than that, but you know what I mean. The rationale for that is that, it's until the food and beverage strategy is released. So, so just wondering also how considerations around that program were brought into establishing the baseline for local food consumption.
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you very much for the question. There were several questions in there, so I'll try to take them in turn, and if I miss one, I might have to ask for you to repeat it, but I will start with the baseline study and where we're at with that. As you know, there was references made to the baseline study in our estimates, and that we were getting closer to having some information that the minister could share publicly. So just to reiterate, we went through hiring a consultant to help us establish a baseline, knowing that we wanted 20% of all money spent on food in Nova Scotia spent on local food, so that by 2030. That is the mandate item captured in our minister's letter. So we engaged our consultant to actually begin the analysis on a methodology that we could reproduce, so that on an annual basis or a frequency that we determined in the department, that we could confidently and scientifically go back with a method that we had confidence in terms of that number that we would generate. Phase 1 was completed. I'm happy to say that phase 2 is underway as I speak. So phase 2 to replicate the first round methodology to determine if there were any outliers or adjustments that needed to be made in the median or the median of that analysis is underway now. Once that's available, we'll fully brief our minister, and in the coming months after that, we should be in a position to release that number and feel confident that it can be replicated. And I am happy to say that, the consultant firm that was hired to do that is also doing a peer-reviewed paper that they will also be launching in a peer-reviewed journal, because it's the first time that Nova Scotia has actually engaged in confirmation methodology to determine local spend on food. How that ties into the food strategy, I think, was your next question. Yes? Okay. So the food and beverage strategy, as you know, was a 14-department horizontal collaboration, wonderful collaboration across many ministries to generate the food and beverage strategy. The first piece of that in December of 2022 was to go out publicly in a consultation whereby we received through the survey 1,900 respondents to that survey, providing us critical feedback on several elements around local food and what would be required in a local food and beverage strategy. And the committee then prepared the What We Heard report from all of that feedback. It is available now, and they are turning their attention now to what they heard in that report and are moving forward with development of the strategy, which we hope again will be available in the coming months.
Thank you, MLA Coombs.
Thank you. So as mentioned in the opening statements, that a report recently has stated by 2029 the province would have a shortage of, I think it was 2,600 farm workers. My question is, what are the measures the department is taking or considering to address this issue?
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the question. Labor is clearly one of the more significant issues and challenges facing Nova Scotia agriculture as a whole. We have an aging workforce. We heard from the minister and the Federation's co-hosted roundtable last week. The average age of a producer is 58 years old. Obviously, there's need for some youth within agriculture. There's low wages, there's physical nature of the job, and there's seasonal requirements for workers, all presenting challenges around labor. So yes, obviously a very significant topic. Our minister brings up this issue. I would suggest every time he has the ear of Minister Bibeau at the federal level to reiterate his concern on the labor challenge and how they might support through the temporary foreign worker program and any adjustments that might be made to that program to help. We bring in 1,400 temporary foreign workers on an annual basis in Nova Scotia to try help the labor gap that we have here. The Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture is leading the way on their farm and workforce development strategy. Us as a department, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the Federation in helping them with that strategy, and we also participate on their Farm and Workforce Development Advisory Committee to help on the subject of labor. We also spend a considerable amount of time in the Department of Agriculture considering careers. So as I alluded to, you want to attract youth into agriculture. So we look at initiatives around scholarships and internships to help students enter into this field, not only students in high school, but we're also targeting post-secondary students as well. And we also have diversity initiatives around African Nova Scotians and Mi'kmaq students. We have our on-farm student bursary program that provides high school and university students who spend a specific number of hours on a farm with a bursary, so that's helping to encourage them and hopefully will, through time, lend some relief as individuals identify career in agriculture through these initiatives. And we also have a very active agriculture in the classroom group within the Department of Agriculture through industry development. They spend, this is a group of 3, they spend a large amount of their time looking at career development for students. They work with teachers on curriculum development. We actually chair the Ag in the Classroom nationally right now through the Department of Agriculture representative at that table. And I also want to indicate that the minister had assembled his youth council, and he's met with them several times in the last 12 months, and they are providing guidance on recommendations for the minister to consider in terms of programming that might help to alleviate pressures in the labor gap that we have in agriculture. Thank you.
MLA Coombs, I understand you have a follow-up.
Yes, I do. So temporary workers, you mentioned, they are playing a significant role in the industry due to the increasing work shortage. So the issue of MSI coverage for these workers remains significant one, as does permanent residency. Are the two. And we've asked the minister about this in the spring, and we were told the issue would be, with regards to MSI, that the issue would be passed along to the Department of Health and Wellness. I'm just wondering, is the department involved in ongoing discussions with the Department of Health on MSI coverage for temporary foreign workers? And has there been discussions with the Department of Labor, Skills and Immigration on permanent residency?
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you for both of those questions. Yes, the minister has a keen interest in advocating on behalf of addressing the labor pressures in Nova Scotia. He's certainly had dialogue with his colleagues both at Health and at Labor. Those conversations also have been directed to the deputy level, where we continue to look at options and possibilities around addressing that. But I also want to indicate that the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture, through their workforce and their labor and their strategy initiatives, are a leading vocal voice for that, and for us, we like to support them in their advocacy work to have that recognized as part of the Temporary Foreign Worker Initiative.
Before I go on to the next question, I want to recognize that MLA Taggart has replaced MLA Ritchie. MLA Smith for the next question.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you to our panelists of witnesses for being here today. I always find it really informative to sit on committees and learn about things that we might not otherwise learn about regularly. So my question is going to be about technology and advancements in technology, and I think it's going to go towards Ms. Vanden Heuvel or Ms. Vanderheide. Before I get into my question on technology, though, in your opening remarks, you spoke about Ms. Vanderheide, sorry, you talked about some of the challenges with technology, with internet and cell service. And of course, we all know, living in rural, that cell service is troubling sometimes and makes it harder to do business. But I hope that your members know on the internet side of things that last fall we put out the satellite internet rebate program, so that there is assistance out there for folks who don't otherwise have reliable internet to get subsidized to buy a Starlink. So if you don't have that information, I'd be happy, or we'd be happy to share it with you after the meeting so you can disseminate it amongst your members, okay? The technology as it relates to farming, more specific to farming, is that I'm being told that in the 90s, automated milkers, they were new, and now all of a sudden they're the standard in the industry. So I'm curious, using that example, are there other advancements in technologies that are starting up right now that eventually you think will become the norm, and how's that rolling out in Nova Scotia?
Ms. Vanderheide.
It's every day. I mean, our big, even if you look at SCAP, the programs are all towards, green technology or an increase of use of technology to help with labor gaps. On poultry farms, we are using it. We, as I mentioned, monitor our environments in the barn, from everything from our water consumption, our heat, our ventilation, the weight and overall health of our birds. That is becoming fairly normal on poultry farms. However, because of some of the interruptions, it's not necessarily our reliable way, but there's other things that I'm sure Carolyn can speak more to it as well, of things like GPS on tractors and though the word is not, things like auto steer and precision agriculture that help us in several ways to really reduce and limit the amount of our inputs that we're putting on, so it's not too much or too little, and we're not overlapping in areas, and to really just be more efficient with our practices. So definitely, as we are using technology to address the labor gaps, but also to help our farms be more efficient, it is becoming more norm on our farm to have more technology than even 10 years ago.
Ms. Heuvel, did you have something to add to that?
I think it's really exciting to see the technology that we're seeing on farm, and you're right, the last generation we saw excessive advancements in technology. To Amy's point, we're looking at technology for a number of reasons. We know that our profitability is challenged, so there's ways to find efficiencies and increase our productivity through use of technology. It's helping fill our labor gap in certain areas, and then also in our environmental sustainability and enhancing our environmental practices. So technology plays a critical role in so many aspects of the sustainability of our industry. And we are seeing Amy mentioned a few of the, like the GPS and the precision agriculture, and we're seeing those across commodities, but a lot of the technology we're seeing may be commodity specific. So another example that we would see as well, in the apple industry, we're seeing the use of apple picking platforms as well, instead of having ladders to be used. That also provides opportunities to provide improved health and safety for our workers. So as we continue to look at opportunities to adopt technology, I think that we'll see that increasing throughout the industry, and we need to ensure that the investment's there so we can make the investment. We also need to ensure that when we're bringing in technology from other countries, that the regulatory burden that's related to having equipment come in from Europe, for example, where they may have an equivalent standard to us, doesn't deter us from being able to use that technology on our farms. So I think we'll continue to see adoption, and really we need to see our industry be sustainable.
Emily Smith, I understand you have a follow-up.
I do. Thank you, Chair. That's all great information. Thank you. I'm curious to know how the advancements in technology are being welcomed by some of the more seasoned farmers, I will say. I know that veteran farmers, thank you. I know I have a mom who is in her 70s, I won't say the exact number, but I often have to help her with her email password just to help get her back online. So I'm curious, are those farmers welcoming the technology, and are there things out there to help them become more educated in the technology?
Mr. Vanderheide?
I would say that like any change, it can be scary. An example on our farm is that my husband and I do the technology, and his father is very much, I don't know what to do, you do it, and I'm happy. But saying that, I think a lot of people, no matter what the age, are seeing the benefits to that technology, especially for things like work-life balance as well. And we're seeing them maybe more slowly than the younger generation, but they are tagging on as, you know, it's around the coffee shop table where they're trying something new and then someone else tries it and it catches on. But there's also, I'm sure Carolyn will mention this, but the Federation does a lot of great things too with webinars and workshops and things to introduce technologies and really get what we have here out there so that it is kind of, they have a little bit of education going into it.
Are we good? Oh, do you want to go? Okay. Ms. Vanderheide.
Now I lost my train of thought of what I was going to say. Yeah, so I think that absolutely there are some generational challenges at times, but I also just think we have what we would consider to be the older generation of farmers that continue to innovate. So we actually see some of our most significant innovation in, you know, my parents' generation as well. So I would say across generations, we do see early adopters, so people that are really eager to adopt technology and take that risk on, and some may not. So whether or not people are making the decision based on the risk element to it, including that technology, because something new means that you might have a breakdown, are there the proper technicians in place to fix that equipment? In some, it is because it's new and it's challenging. So part of our role at the Federation, you know, we do our policy and advocacy work, but we also deliver programming through our Farm and Workforce Development team, and we're constantly looking for ways to support the industry in enhancing those skills so they have what they need. And I'd say that also we need to recognize like the entire kind of ecosystem. Our farm equipment dealers provide great support to our farmers when they're purchasing equipment to understand how to use that equipment. So I'd say we have, you know, the early adopters, the folks that are kind of shortly behind, and then maybe some other folks that take a little bit longer to actually take that technology on their farm.
Thank you. MLA Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to stay on gaps in cell service. Several farmers can't call out from orchards because there is no cell service. Several farmers can't call for a part because there's no cell service. Not just an economic development concern, but a safety concern. It's one of the most dangerous professions. Unfortunately, several of my family members have been hurt on the farm. But when you have no cell service, you're not sending an email to 911, you're trying to call. And so, you know, I'm just concerned that there hasn't been a rapid development or an urgency to rolling out that cell service throughout rural Nova Scotia, affecting a lot of our farmers. So I guess back to the Deputy Minister, who did confirm that she was, or the department was, in discussions over that cell gap study. Was there an opportunity in the criteria or with the authors of that study or with government and other ministers to raise these concerns on behalf of agriculture, such as, for example, you're on a farm, you've been seriously hurt, you may be given more points or more criteria given or more urgency given to that to someone else or another group or another location? Thank you.
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you for the question. With regards to the criteria, obviously there was a full slate of different criteria in filling out that survey. I'd have to really get that information for you if it was weighted against the scenario that you described. In my recollection, there was no weighting on a scenario where you might get priority queue based on the situation that you found yourself in. The way that we approached it was really providing the information about business continuity and the business itself. Not entirely sure that it segued into the safety concerns. Well, I am assured that all concerns were provided, but we would have to go back if you're looking for a level of detail of what was brought forward. And obviously, ministers always have an opportunity to follow up and provide additional information with their colleagues as, you know, these are important subjects. They require a lot of attention, but they are led in other departments, and we have to collaborate and provide critical information to ensure that the Department of Agriculture's concerns and support of producers in the province is appropriately reflected.
MLA LeBlanc. Oh, sorry, you have a follow-up? MLA Kerr.
I want to thank the Deputy Ministers, and I appreciate her offering that level of detail, so I would appreciate being sent that level of detail. Thank you.
MLA LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to go back to labor issues. I know, coming from a rural riding, how important the resource industries are, fisheries, forestry, and farming. And from my experience, it doesn't matter where you go across the province or which sector, everybody's in desperate need of finding employees, oftentimes through immigration or trying to recruit new people to the industry, but oftentimes trying to maybe encourage people from other businesses or industries to move to yours. So I know in the short term it's critical, but I'm trying to get a sense of what's the impact long term if these short-term labor shortages aren't addressed in a reasonable amount of time. What does it mean for the industry going forward? So I don't know if Executive Director Vanderheide maybe.
Ms. Vanderheide.
So I think one of the things, thank you for the question, I'd like to address too is the reality is these labor challenges have been increasing over time. So we know the short fixes are not necessarily where we need to be. So we do need to start looking in some of those long-term strategies. But with the research that was done by the Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council, who we partner with, we actually see currently it's estimated to $33 million in lost sales a year due to the labor gap that we see. And we know that that labor gap is going to increase. So we are challenged. And I think it's also important to realize that that labor gap's also at the farm operator level, so within our workforce, but also that succession between our farm operators. So I think we need to look at two different types of solutions depending on what type of workers we're looking for, whether we're looking for workers to come into the seasonal roles, into maybe the more middle management roles, or into the farm operator pieces. So looking at ways that we can provide the skills and training for folks to join the industry. And you're right, we're competing against our other industries. So, you know, whether we're competing against fishing or forestry or other groups, that is the reality, or even against like farms to farms. And we're challenged as well. We know that we're challenged to provide strong wages and compensation packages to our employees. And we want to find ways that we can improve our benefits package so that we can work to actually retain those workers. I'd say we don't actually have a silver bullet in terms of the solutions on how we think that we can address that. Some of the priorities we're looking at in our farm and workforce development strategy is the opportunities to connect to farming. So for newcomers to Nova Scotia, for youth to join the industry, and really making sure people understand the opportunities that exist. We want to prepare farmers, so ensuring that we're providing skills training and education to those wanting to work on farm. Supporting farms in their human resources and improving our human resource practices. That would be our third priority. Innovate and automate. We see the technology piece, as previously asked, being key to supporting that labor, but again, not the full answer. And then growing in diversity. There's an opportunity to increase the diversity. So those are really the 5 pillars we're working on. But I can't sit here and tell you that I have a really great suggestion on how we can actually nail it. But it is getting to be concerning. So we need to make sure that we work together right now to see how we can recruit people to work in our industry.
Thank you. MLA LeBlanc for follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick follow-up. I think in one of the opening remarks it was mentioned that profitability is decreasing, which is quite concerning. Do you believe that part of that decline in profitability is the need to compete for labor, and then it's driving up wages at the same time as maybe there's are there other challenges that are creating that?
Ms. Vanden Heuvel?
I would say labor is definitely one of the challenges, and it's not necessarily about higher wages, but if we have a constant turnover, that costs us money as well. Although we do actually have one of the lowest turnover rates in Canada in our industry, which is something we are proud of here as Nova Scotia farmers. But the rising costs of all inputs, so we're looking at fertilizer, fuel, cost of labor, any cost of really growth and development on operations are really what are challenging the profitability to our farms right now. So I think that there's a number of elements that are playing into that. And I think I'd welcome Amy too. She may have some specific examples in her experience in her operation as well that she'd like to share.
Mrs. Vanderheide?
We see challenges for labor from everything from on-farm activities right up to our processing. So we sell our chicken to our processor. Through COVID, their lack of workers, of employees, meant that they weren't able to do necessarily all the cuts that they would normally make to fill their contracts and sell. So that reduces their profitability, which then can feed down to our profitability. I think that because we're in supply managed, we are able to control our cost and our price a bit more. But then when you see the sticker at the grocery store, that's what hits for people. So it's not that we're getting paid that much at the grocery store. Our prices stay the same, but that profit because of the rising costs of our heat, of our feed, of our fertilizer, and all of our other inputs is still cutting into our profitability, and then any labor that we are hiring on our farms as well.
Thank you. MLA Sheehy-Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You kind of segued into the question and the topic that I want to get into, just as the rising cost to operate farms has significantly grown and increased in the recent years. And as you pointed out in your slide, the federal Liberal carbon tax that's coming right around the corner is certainly only going to amplify those costs. So I just want to know if we could talk a little bit about initiatives like, for example, the Local Food Advancer program and focuses supporting farmers as they invest in innovation and technology, which we did talk about a bit too. And do you feel that modernization in these areas could have an impact on combating that rising input costs that you were talking about? The Advance program, maybe that's you. Maybe that's you. Thank you.
Is it Deputy Minister Robichaud?
Yes, I'd be happy to take that question. Thank you very much. I mean, it's been very good discussion around the labor issue and how that segues into trying to keep cost of production low so that at the end of the day, the producer actually is receiving a fair payment for the products that they're producing. So I want to speak a little bit about how you come at that through your question and advances in technology. And I had just wanted to mention under our SCAP, which is the sustainable cap that I alluded to previously, you know, the minister negotiated a 25% increase in that funding envelope. And within that, there is a program dedicated specifically to adoption of technology on farm. So one of the streams comes at that with a lens to how can we support producers to tackle the labor issue through automation. And we have great conversations with tangible outcomes as we move forward with this dialogue, both with our colleagues at Economic Development who have an interest in this, in addition to Research Nova Scotia, Invest Nova Scotia, Build Nova Scotia. Everyone recognizes that through automation there may be some solutions to tackle that issue and provide, if not at the processing level, picking up on what Amy said, at least on farm and then further up the value chain as we implement these initiatives. So I just wanted to allude to that as one of the solutions. And then if you think about both season extension and our investment in season extension to provide producers with technology that extends the season both in the spring and in the fall so that they can actually generate a crop and have more income for an extended period of time while at the same time tackling elements of climate change because they could be further under glass or another solution to extend that season. So how that segues into your local food advancer question, really there is significant opportunity through the investments that were recently made on large-scale processing operations for local food advancement to move to automation in terms of addressing not only the labor need, but a more product and lower cost of production to go to market. And we're happy to say that in the coming months, we'll also be doing a small-scale food advancer program for the small and medium-sized enterprises, and we're about to launch that program in the coming weeks. As soon as our minister is satisfied with the content of it, it is a very significant investment both for large and small and medium scale.
Thank you. MLA McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've got a question that hopefully is good news, which is according to the Nova Scotia Farmers Report, direct sales to consumers is almost a third of Nova Scotian farmers are selling directly to customers, while nationally it's like 15% or under. Given how important local sales are to the agricultural economy, how can programs like Nova Scotia Loyal positively support our growers and producers? And I'm going to guess it's going to go, I will let the people decide who's going to respond, Mr. Chair, because I'm not taking a shot at that, because I think I'll want to.
I need a show of hands or not. Ms. Vanden Heuvel, you've been nominated?
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, so I appreciate you highlighting that local piece. It's again, I think something that we are proud of, that we do a lot of direct-to-consumer marketing here in Nova Scotia. There's lots of different marketing and business models that we use, but we definitely see that we have the highest farmers markets per capita here as well. So another interesting statistic. In terms of Nova Scotia Loyal, I think any opportunities that we have to actually increase awareness around local, so people can pick local in the grocery store and understand that that's what they're purchasing and understand where their food is coming from. Because I think sometimes we get busy and then we're going into the store and we forget kind of that farm to fork path that our food travels. So I know that the Nova Scotia Loyal program is still in development, and we are looking forward to kind of seeing what details will roll out and how that will integrate with our farmers that are direct to market and those that aren't necessarily direct to market but also producing a local product. And we're really hopeful that that will actually encourage more Nova Scotians to buy local.
Thank you. MLA LaChance.
Thank you. I wanted to go back a bit to the discussions around workforce development, but also farm succession planning. And, you know, certainly one of the challenges to entry to the industry is access to capital and access to land. So, I mean, there's, you know, a number of initiatives like land banks and land trusts that are possible, you know, opportunities to make land available to folks who wouldn't otherwise be able to access it, or make land available to folks to access more land. And, you know, and I think those are really key when you're thinking about, I mean, we do have a less consolidated agriculture industry in Nova Scotia, and I think it's one of the great assets that we have, actually. At the same time, lack of access, so that we have those, and I would invite comment in terms of priorities around access to land for farm succession. But I can't help but also ask about questions around diversity. So, you know, I think newcomers and youth have been mentioned, but certainly, I mean, essentially Nova Scotia was built on the dispossession of Mi'kmaq people from land, and the restriction and lack of access to land by African Nova Scotian communities and Acadians who were moved off farmland. So what sort of programs are in place specifically to work with the African Nova Scotian community, the Mi'kmaq community, and I'm also wondering if you have any programs targeting 2S LGBTQ plus communities. So I think there might be a question in there for both Carolyn and the deputy. So
Deputy Minister Robichaud, are you first?
I can go first, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. Within the Department of Agriculture, we certainly have a variety of programs that are targeted towards diversity, both for African Nova Scotians and the Mi'kmaq. Perhaps a little less specific for the LGBTQ community, however, not remiss in our approach to looking at all diverse groups within the Department of Agriculture. But we have perhaps advanced a little further with our initiatives around African Nova Scotian and the Mi'kmaq community with our industry development, and through our regional programming, we have staff that are specifically working on initiatives. I believe today, and I would have to confirm this for you, but I think it's today, is the diversity session for African Nova Scotians housed here in Halifax for programming under SCAP, targeted specifically for that group, so that we can have a really good dialogue around the programming that's specifically available to them. We've had several conversations lately around acquisition of land, and through the Farm Loan Board, how we can approach the customary requirements around assets to acquire loans and relax the eligibility so that individuals that do not come with the same portfolio of assets or capital that they themselves can put into acquisition of land or projects, that we can approach that in a different way. And I'm very happy to say that those dialogues are well underway, and we have had some success on the seafood and aquaculture side with Indigenous groups with regards to the fisheries. So we're seeing some really positive movement there on new entrants with attraction of vessels and quota and different items. That's more on the land side. I also wanted to just mention we have several initiatives targeted at youth and are running a Nova Scotia rural Black Youth Initiative out of Truro and Bible Hill, where we have attracted 13 students for this summer that will have the experience to work across 5 government departments, not only agriculture, but it speaks to the opportunity to have an experience and a connection with a potential career and wherever that might lead. Some of them obviously in agriculture, but very happy to say that, you know, there's students with justice and other departments, community services, the list goes on. So we're very happy about that and the uptake and the realization that those initiatives need to spill out beyond HRM into rural Nova Scotia as well. I'm not sure if I captured, you had a few questions in there. If you wanted to reiterate one, I could tackle that as well. I might have missed one.
Ms. Vanden Heuvel?
So I think I'll tackle the land piece. So you mentioned a land bank program, and that's absolutely one of the recommendations that we have, is that we'd like to see a land bank program here in Nova Scotia, capital investment for newcomers to farming, and also like a next generation within the family is significant. Our farmland values are increasing, but that also means that the cost to actually get into farming is increasing as well. And we see land bank as an opportunity to support the profitability of our operations and the growth of our operations, and also to help facilitate succession planning. We did have a land bank program here back in the, I think, 70s and 80s, and the farmers always say, you know, back the old program, but that predates me. So, but we're looking to see that land bank again, which would mean farmers would have access to rent and purchase land at an affordable rate, and it also would help free up some cash flow. And then within that, we also look at agricultural easements and opportunities to place agricultural easements on land to ensure that it stays in agriculture production. The quality of our land is essential to our work and soil health and water resources. So we also want to ensure that we keep that land in agriculture production. So there's a few policy opportunities and programs that I think we could establish that would support both succession planning and support the protection of agricultural land. In terms of diversity, we also, I think that session is happening today. We have one of our staff members attending as well to hear that feedback. So under our farm and workforce development work, that's where we have a priority of growing in diversity. And we recognize recognize that that needs to be done by listening to communities and understanding what barriers exist and how we could actually support folks in overcoming those barriers, and that perhaps there's advocacy work that we can do to make sure that that's a lens that we're always applying to our work. We have partnered on a few programs. So the Bridge into Agriculture program was a partnership between the Department of Agriculture, Dalhousie University, African Nova Scotian Affairs, and the Federation of Agriculture, and we're running it for the second year now, and that was an opportunity for African Nova Scotians to learn about gardening within their community. So it's horticulture based, but definitely on a small scale so that they could help address some of the food security issues. And we did farm tours with the hopes that they'd see opportunities to actually look at agriculture as a viable career. And this summer, actually, we're also working at profiling some of the diversity in our industry, and we recognize our industry is not necessarily as diverse as it could be in terms of people. So finding those opportunities to do profiles, to tell the story about equity-deserving individuals that have joined the industry or that have been in the industry, so that we can make those connections and folks will see opportunities. I think we have lots of work to do in this area. But we're really excited to find those opportunities.
MLA Coombs.
Thank you. I'm going to switch gears for a few minutes. The report on healthy foods that the Auditor General provided recently, basically what it boiled down to was that many of the schools were not following the food standards, healthy food standards, especially those that contracted out to companies such as Cartwell's. And so I understand that there's a program now in 5 schools that were chosen for the food cart pilot program. And I have a question and then a follow-up. How were these 5 schools chosen? And are there current plans to extend this to other schools?
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you very much for the question. When we early on realized that we need to actually reach our targets and mandate around 20% of local food by 2030 would include our own institutions and where food is consumed. So schools was a natural area to look at, coupled with the fact that we want our children to have healthy local food, displacing imports, tackling environmental issues, geographic footprints of transportation, and various things that led to this desire to have institutional procurement. So we struck a team and had a manager hired who has a very knowledgeable skill set in procurement, because it's one thing to say we're going to go into schools, hospitals, correctional facilities, etc., but you need a skill set to have the conversations around identification of the current import basket in the schools, for example, understanding the distribution system and the suppliers and the footprint to get that product there. So that team very quickly engaged in that work, and I would suggest the school selections were based on conversations around readiness and a realization by the schools that they were prepared to enter into a pilot with us in this particular area, with the full knowledge that there would be lessons learned, barriers identified, allowing us to then replicate that and take that hopefully province-wide at the conclusion of the pilots and the analysis of the data. So we're doing 2 pilots right now in schools. One is the fresh food carts, which covers the 5 schools, as you mentioned. The impact on the students, and I might get my numbers reversed here, but I'll throw them out and we can go back and validate them. But in one area, we're hitting nearly 5,000 students through the number of schools participating in that particular pilot. And then we're running a second pilot with a bigger range, 7,800 to 8,000 students, where we're doing fruit baskets. And those fruit baskets are available throughout the day for students who can go, and really it's a self-serve mechanism for a healthy food choice to displace what otherwise might be a bad food choice within a school environment. And what I'm happy to indicate in that particular pilot as well, it's geared up so that there is equal access to the food, and it's not a situation where perhaps a child who doesn't have the means to have a healthy food choice does not have to go and identify themselves as asking for something, but rather they can go and help themselves. So it's a really good process by which they can self-serve in those areas as well. So we're hitting a fair number of schools. You said 5 in the first one. I believe that, again, I want to confirm numbers for you, but there's 10 to 13 schools in the second fruit basket pilot. And once we've analyzed the data, which each pilot is closing at a different point in time, and we have 10 pilots running currently, we will analyze that data, tackle the barriers that we're identifying, and look at how we then replicate those into any school in the province that wants to participate in that program, because that would be a success story, and we're all about success and healthy food for our students. I could speak at length about this because I'm quite passionate about it. It's critically important, and it's really good work, and the team and those that are partnering with us on these initiatives are second to none, and I have every confidence that we'll meet those targets and we'll start to see a shift on being able to acquire local food in our public institutions as the right choice and the right thing to do to advance this agenda for Nova Scotia and to hit the mandate items in our minister's requirement for that 20% by 2030.
Emily Coombs, you had a follow-up?
Yes, and some clarifications. So, so first of all, with regards to how the schools were chosen, and you can answer all these at the end. Are you assuming that that's how they were chosen, or was there particular criteria set that these schools met? Because I wasn't quite sure in how you answered the question. So if you could clarify that, as well as you mentioned that 5,000 students for the food cart pilot that you're reaching, but how many are actually, do we have a data of how many students are actually participating in that program? So how many students are we, this is so 5,000 is the potential students we could reach. What are the actuals? And will the department be releasing the results of the program? And do we have any, and its evaluations, and do we have any timelines on this?
Emily Robichaud, I think there's 4 or 5 questions there, whichever ones you can answer for one quick follow-up.
So the criteria...
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
You may need to reiterate some of those because I'm not penning them as you say them, but we'll start with the criteria first. For the food cart pilot, there was several criteria that were looked at by the selection team, so the team working on institutional procurement. I do know, though, that one of the elements that was critical for the school that approached us is just their readiness with some of the equipment already acquired in the school system so that they could hit the ground running and have those carts in place in real time. So that was one of them, but there's many others, and you can appreciate we have 10 pilots running, so criteria for each of those pilots was determined by the group along in conversation with those that are participating in each pilot. So your question around reporting, these are pilots that are running right to the end of this year, 2023. They're all on different contracts with us. They all have required deliverables within each contract. So once we've analyzed each of those, we're not adverse to sharing what we've learned, because I think it's how we move the agenda forward on being able to replicate pilots in other schools, other hospitals, other correctional facilities, and food hubs, which is the other big one, because distribution is key, and we're running pilots with 2 food hubs now around clustering smaller producers' products so that we can have volume to then get into the institution, which is, again, a lesson learned around how you get volume to enter into a contract with a facility. Those are 2 of your questions. Do you want to repeat the third one?
I'm going to move on with questions.
Okay.
I am going to move on because I have 4 other speakers on here from Washington time. MLA Taggart.
Thank you, Chair, and I apologize for being late. I guess I need a course on time management maybe, but I want to go back to foreign farm workers. Foreign farm workers are critical to certainly to the horticulture industry. I don't know, certainly they're probably one of the most labor intensive, and if there's 1,400 foreign farm workers in Nova Scotia, close to 500 of them are probably in Colchester North. So they play a significant role in, I guess, the economy of our communities. Certainly they're part of the communities now, and they can be back year over year, and they're part of the communities in Colchester North. And they do great work. And I think I just want to say that certainly in my time I've seen, since they started to where they are today, huge improvements been made in the quality of life and living conditions, and farmers recognize more and more and more the value. So I want to kind of clarify a little bit, and I'm not supposed to ask a question without knowing the answer, but I want to clarify a little bit this piece on MSI, which I certainly support and see the value of, but I want to make sure the foreign farm workers that come to Nova Scotia, either the farmer or the government that they come from, have to provide a medical insurance program before they get here. Am I correct in that? And I think Ms. Van Heuvel, or yeah,
Ms. Vanden Heuvel?
Yes. So workers under the temporary foreign worker program are required to have access to medical insurance, and there is a private insurance that is Access Cowan Insurance is a typical provider here.
And yeah.
MLA Taggart, do you have a follow-up?
Well, I guess if. Well, I have a follow-up, but I need a little clarification on that as well. There's things that say that written in. I won't go down that. That's fine. So the other piece that I want to be clear on here is that foreign farm workers, which are critical, we wouldn't have this in horticulture industry, probably a lot of agriculture industries without them. They're provided. They're provided a flight here, and if for any reason their employment ends, whether they're not happy or unable to do the job or whatever, their employment ends, they automatically have a flight back home. It's not like they're restricted to living in Nova Scotia. Is that correct?
Ms. Vanden Heuvel?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for now. I'll put my hand up for another question.
Thank you. MLA Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to comment on the fresh food pilot, one of my concerns was there wasn't a school, as far as I know, in the Annapolis Valley or Annapolis that I represent that was included in that pilot, and I find that concerning. But there's also a couple schools in Annapolis that have gone backwards. Local food has been removed from the school due to a local procurement policy at the Regional Education Center. I've brought it up with both the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Education, so that's extremely concerning. My question's around the Deputy Minister, I believe, acknowledged the threat by the avian flu to the poultry industry. I believe that the Chicken Farmers Association also raised this concern, and their quote, you even offered a suggestion, I believe, plan for a new lab that meets the requirements for these highly infectious diseases or secure access to regional facilities with formal agreements cost sharing. And I apologize for reading that quote. I guess my question to the department and the Deputy Minister, could she update us on the development and construction of an infectious disease lab in the province, and if not, why? Thank you.
I'm going to rule the question out of order. because the concern is at the federal level government through the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and if the issue is brought by industry and the CFIA, the province will definitely take part in supporting it. But for our topic here today, I think that's as an order. Do you have another question?
I have a clarification.
Go ahead, Emily Kerr.
Could you elaborate, Mr. Chair, on why it's ruled? There is a federal component, but there also is a provincial component responsibility.
My understanding is that it is governed by the federal agency, not by the province. The province takes part in it and supports it here in Nova Scotia, but to have that topic here today, there's not much, it's not a good use of our time.
Okay. Could I ask?
Can I rise a point?
No, just please.
Emily LaChance.
Sorry. I would like to, I don't know if it's a point of order, but I don't agree with you ruling that question out of order. Certainly, like, one of the first things when I was elected and became the agriculture critic for the Nova Scotia NDP, one of the first things that was, brought to my attention was a great concern about the lack of capacity to respond in emergency situations adequately in this province, and that there had been better provincial capacity, actually, perhaps not the lab that's also being talked about with avian flu. So first of all, I think it's a completely relevant question because it's talked about all the time. So I don't know how you can rule that out of order. And secondly, I think your ruling was quite inappropriate as chair to actually assert what the government would do. So you said if the industry and the federal government came forward, then the province will step forward. And I think, with all due respect, but in your role as chair, that is not a statement that's appropriate to make.
First off, if you want to put on a topic for another statement or a topic for a future meeting, you're free to do that at agenda setting meeting. But for now, I'm going to rule out of order. If you want to challenge the chair, you can call for a vote. Emily Kerr.
Call for a vote.
May I make a comment or ask it? Or I'd like to rephrase the question. I agree with my colleagues' concerns. I mean, as a farmer growing up amongst farmers, I've heard this issue be brought up as the topic of this meeting is challenges in the agriculture sector. There is a provincial component. Can I rephrase my question to the Deputy Minister? Have there been any discussions about introducing the development and construction of a lab with the federal government?
Can I ask that question?
Okay.
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you very much for the question. As alluded to, the testing for avian influenza is with CFIA, but certainly industry has raised the concern around testing capacity in Nova Scotia. In the last outbreak that we had the fortunate circumstance of New Brunswick being able to do the preliminary screening testing for us on our behalf. Confirmatory testing is determined by CFIA, to which a sample then makes its way to Winnipeg. I will state that for Nova Scotia, we currently don't have biosecurity level clearance to do AI testing here, but it would be CFIA in conversation with the province and industry making it known to CFIA that there is a desire to have that capacity here. I might make an additional note to that to say that our minister has a very collaborative working relationship with his Atlantic colleagues, as do deputies. This would perhaps be an item that, if it was raised by industry with CFIA and supported by our minister as an agenda item, that the Atlantic ministers would like to pursue and have dialogue on, that they may look at it from an Atlantic perspective for economies of scale and also ability to maintain technical competency in a lab of this nature to do notifiable disease testing within the province.
Sorry, I just had to get clarity. Emily LaChance, you had something?
I think that I'm like her.
Sorry. Go ahead, Emily Kerr.
Thank you to the Deputy Minister. So I guess I know the industry has raised this as an issue. I assume they have, with me several times, and I wonder if we could ask the Deputy Minister to raise this with the Minister, this idea of bringing it together with other colleagues across Atlantic Canada and then reporting back to the committee on that progress.
That's to Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Are you asking a question or providing a direction?
Emily Kerr.
Yeah, potentially both, but I'll ask as a question first, and then depending on the response, maybe there's a direction in there, but thank you.
Emily Kerr, can you clarify?
Is the Deputy Minister able to speak to the Minister and report back to this committee on progress on that action as far as meeting with Atlantic colleagues to further this this issue? Thank you.
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
So with all due respect, I would not necessarily take back a request from this table to the minister, but rather defer to industry representatives to my left to raise that concern directly with myself and the minister, and would bring it forward in a more formal way. Just unaccustomed to taking direction here to take back to the minister.
Good. Emily LaChance.
Thank you. So I certainly, I don't feel like creating an antagonistic atmosphere at the table, but I am concerned that when the chair of the committee provides input into the discussion, when I think that the chair of the committee and your role is to oversee the function and the rigor of this committee actually occupies, unless in case of a vote, you don't participate in the discussions. So, again, I would challenge that was inappropriate. And I don't know what my recourse is in this, but maybe to ask you to withdraw the statement about what the government will do or won't do.
My statement was that this committee is a provincial committee, and that the question that was asked was for a federal government. We do not have any jurisdiction there, so I wanted to keep us on topic as a province, so I don't feel I said anything wrong. Emily LaChance?
That's actually not the statement with which I'm taking issue at all. And obviously we're having this discussion without Hansard in front of us. But what I believe was then said by yourself was that you said, if industry and the federal government comes together on this, then this government will respond. And so you made a statement of action on behalf of the government, which I don't think is appropriate with your role as chair of this committee.
Well, I will say it again. The province would support industry and the CFIA. Do you have an issue with that?
Yes, I'm challenging that.
Then challenge it. Order. Come back to session. Emily LaChance, I don't know if we're having a disagreement in what the term support means, but I will not apologize or take it back, but what I would simply say is that I'm speaking on behalf of myself, assuming that the province will take part in industry and federal agency. That is our job. I assume that's what we do. That's all I'm saying. We don't have any action here. I don't think you're taking a point of order. I don't know what you're doing here. I really don't know where we're going from here. There's no other conversation to really have. I don't know what else we're going to say about this. So if you raised your point, Emily LaChance.
I don't like your dismissive tone, so in fact, I would also consider that a point of privilege. What I am doing is trying to ensure that committees run well and that our committee structure is as strong as it can be for how it's constituted, and part of that is having a neutral chair. So that is my concern. It is actually nothing personal at all. But I will thus make a motion for the chair to withdraw the statement about what the province will or won't do as an inappropriate remark for the chair.
You heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Discussion?
I think she's Emily Coombs.
No, I just was seeing if there was discussion on the motion, because normally the chair asks that. But I would just like to say that, in all honesty, and with all due respect to the chair needs to be neutral, and the chair should not be speaking on behalf of government of what government should and should not do. And that is the crux of this. It is not against anybody. It's not personal, and so that we can move on from this. But that is the issue here. The speaking on behalf of government while in the chair. If the chair has comments to make, the chair can remove themselves, put somebody else in, and speak on this side. And that's all I'm going to say on this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? In fairness, what I did was I suggested that this is a provincial government and we should be dealing with provincial issues. Regardless, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contra mind, signify by saying nay.
Nay.
And I vote no. Moving on. Emily LeBlanc, next question. Motion defeated. Emily LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to go back to the question of labor shortages. So I am quite concerned for labor shortages, especially in rural Nova Scotia. And what I'm hearing all the time is that there's quite a bit of economic growth there that could happen in rural areas if there was more certainty around labor. And I guess what's happening and it might be a bit different in the agriculture industry than in the fishing industry, but business owners have to be versed in immigration. They have to take on housing roles, sometimes become landlords. They have to look at transportation, and above all that, they have to create an environment where those that are come to work in your business feel comfortable and have what they need. So I guess the question I have is how much of an impact is that having on individual farmers? And do you feel that the government, both provincial, in this case provincially, is providing enough support around all those challenges that are outside what normally or typically would be farming? Maybe Executive Director Vandenhoeve?
Ms. Vandenhoeve.
We have lots of Dutch in our industry already, as can be seen sitting here today. And I thank you for that question. I think that the reality is there was a time where farming was farming, and we got to spend the majority of our time in the barns and in the fields and on tractors, but there's absolutely an increase in administration happening at the farm level right now, and our farmers are expected to be human resource experts and marketing experts, crop experts as well. So we are seeing increased pressures on our farmers to be able to kind of keep up with that paperwork and that administration. I would say that I think there's always opportunities to provide additional supports to help farms in navigating those systems. And I know that there are programs in place, and I think sometimes it's even knowing where to start is one of the challenges. And I think we actually heard that last week in our discussions that we had at the roundtable, is navigating programs is a challenge for industry. So I think there's opportunities there. I also think whenever we're looking at administration and administrative burden, any opportunity that we have to apply that agriculture lens, that small rural business lens to our policies will be of benefit, because maybe there's opportunities that we're able to make amendments to policies to decrease some of that administration as well, or what those processes are. So absolutely, our farmers are expected to do more, and unfortunately we're doing more with less sometimes, and having additional supports to navigate programs and policies would absolutely benefit the industry.
MLA Robichaud.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to talk a little bit about having Cogwell Poultry and Olton's Meats, both in my constituency, the need and the importance of abattoirs, and if anyone could shed any light on the recent investment of $500,000 for the abattoir enrichment and efficiency program to help grow our local meat industry by way of grants to improve equipment and other aspects of business, which maybe we were just talking about. But is there any real-time proof or shown how this program has helped grow, in particular, the poultry industry locally? So I don't know if I could have maybe hear from you both would be great.
Which one is it? Sorry, who's the question to?
Whoever wants to go first.
Mr. Vanderheide?
So in Nova Scotia, for poultry processing, we have one federally inspected plant, which means that the meat process there can cross borders. For smaller growers, our licensed small flock, they are required to book at a local abattoir. Especially since COVID, with many people growing so much more of their own food, we have seen access to that definitely decline. And it's now to a point where no matter what species of animal that you are trying to process, you're basically booking your process or slaughter date the day you buy the animal, because there are a lack of. So more capacity is definitely needed to help meet the meat we have to process, I guess, if you want to put it that way, and get some of that food, not whether it's somebody who's growing for their own family or farm gate sales, to help get that local food, but also just food to rural places, and more affordability in those communities for that food. So if Loretta wants to take on the funding aspect.
Sure.
Deputy Minister Robichaud.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the comments, Amy. We ran another abattoir program recognizing the need for processing capacity for red meat and white meat, both in the province. We have very limited federally registered plants here. We have several provincially registered plants, but we recognize that there's a capacity issue, and we need to support them in terms of items that they might need to stay viable as businesses in the province of Nova Scotia. So we had ran an abattoir program previously. We ran a second one. There was a lot of work underway through the Atlantic Deputy Minister's table around food self-sufficiency modeling, and the focus of that work currently is around red meat production and processing at the Atlantic level for our respective provinces. So we're seeing, to the second part of your question around, are we seeing any impact from that? Certainly increasing capacity to be able to take on slaughter and processing is enhanced with some of the investments that are being made. So we are seeing that in terms of the outcome. But I'd also like to mention one of the significant impacts that coincides with the investment in the abattoirs is in January, the Department of Agriculture had the meat inspectors, animal welfare, and fur inspectors return to the Department of Agriculture. And along with that came a wealth of knowledge and experience around how you approach the needs in abattoirs by having the workforce aligned with the legislation. So we're very happy with that, and work continues on a daily basis around improvements and current needs, and they're constantly in dialogue. So we're seeing a lot of positive feedback from that transition back from the Department of Environment and Climate Change.
Emily Robichaud.
Not necessarily a follow-up, but I do want to reiterate just, both of my facilities could work 24/7, 7 days a week and still not meet the demand. So, I mean, the more work that we can do to support the few that we do have is really important work. So I look forward to seeing more commitments in that. Thank you.
Emily McDonald with just about 2 minutes left for questioning.
Seriously. Okay. So I just have a question, really, and Mr. or Ms. Vanderheide. How bad did I butcher it? Heuvel. So in your opening statement, you made a remark about regulatory issues with equipment like coming from Europe. So can you explain to me what you meant? Okay.
Ms. Vanderheide.
Yeah, so in terms of having equipment in Canada, and there's various legislation that it would fall under, but for example, in the occupational health and safety legislation, we refer to a number of standards, typically the CSA standards, so Canadian standards. And when we're bringing in equipment from other countries, they're potentially tested to a different standard. And depending on that country, it may be an equivalent standard to what we see here, or maybe it's not. European standards, I think we typically are pretty confident that those are to the same standard that Canadian standards are. So the challenge is when bringing that equipment in, there sometimes, and it's nuanced depending on the equipment, there may be a requirement to have an engineer look at the equipment or have it reviewed for meeting standards. And sometimes that just provides an additional challenge for farms, having that equipment coming here and then it might sit for a while before they're able to review that. So looking at opportunities when we are comfortable and confident that the equipment is manufactured to the same safety specifications, that maybe there's opportunity for some reciprocity of sorts that could exist.
Exactly on the time, 20 to 3 for questioning. So thank you. Deputy Minister Robichaud for closing remarks.
I didn't think we were there already. Thank you very much. I would like to thank everyone for their questions today. I always appreciate an opportunity to share what's happening in the Department of Agriculture, a department that means a great deal to me and my staff who work diligently there every day. There's many challenges in this sector, to be sure, but there's also many opportunities. Some of them we had a chance to review today. But we pursue these in step with industry, and we're always pursuing them together. I have great faith in the skills and the innovation spirit of our farmers and our agri-food producers, and they know they have the support of the Department of Agriculture behind them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Vandenhoevel, do you have closing remarks?
Thank you very much for today's discussion. We are facing a lot of challenges in the agriculture industry, and I think we covered that today. We could probably stay here for a while longer, but I think having this dialogue is really constructive. What I'd like to say is that if we look as a province in investing in agriculture, it's a strategic move that will pay off in the long term, and sometimes we don't see that payoff immediately. It might not be immediately visible, but investing in agriculture means that we're investing in the health and sustainability of our province in our communities. And we truly believe that agriculture can help support our province in achieving its goals of healthcare, environmental targets, population growth, and providing strong rural economies. And we need our farms to be sustainable. And to be sustainable, we need to be profitable. And I think really the final message would be that we don't only owe it to our industry, but to our communities to ensure that we have a strong agriculture industry and that we have a prosperous and sustainable future for our farmers, because that's going to support the prosperity of our province. Thank you.
Ms. Vanderheide, did you have closing remarks?
So once again, thank you for having us today. We really appreciate having the focus on agriculture in this room this afternoon. Every time we get to join a session like this, we see how much farmers have in common with supply management. Sometimes it seems we're set apart a little bit, but the more conversations we have like this and we're all facing the same challenges, gives us a bigger voice and allows us to take part in these conversations. So we thank you again for having us today and look forward to doing it again sometime.
As chair, it's my honor to thank you guys for coming in. We appreciate you broadening our knowledge today for sure. At this time, I can ask you to, you're free to leave. We have some more business to take care of. Do you guys want a couple of minutes recess? Would you need a minute or two? We have a few pieces of business to do, so we'll just wait then? Okay, we'll just wait. 2 minutes. 2 minutes it is. Order. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Under committee business, MLA Robichaud, you have a motion?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. At the April 25th topic selection meeting, it was brought forward by MLA Palmer and I think supported by the Liberal Caucus to bring the topic of safeguarding the future of tidal energy to Nova Scotia bring it forward to this committee as soon as possible. And with that, I move that the topic for the June 27th meeting be safeguarding the future of tidal energy in Nova Scotia.
Discussion? No discussion? Emily Lachance?
Well, I guess we haven't had a chance to consider this because I think, obviously Nova Scotia's clean renewable energy sector is also important. So can we have a couple of minutes of recess to discuss, please?
You can take a few minutes to discuss it. Take 1 minute enough? Really?
How about
we do a
2?
few more motions.
Okay. Well, none of them were provided ahead of time, so we probably are going to need. Yeah.
Good, 2 minutes.
Thanks.
Emily Lachance? Call the meeting back to order. We are ahead of time. Thank you. Emily Lachance.
Thanks. So I think we just had a couple of questions about this. So one is, I think we support the motion around tidal energy as well, and are greatly concerned. I guess I do wonder if there's actually going to be anything to update by the end of June, given the current state of review and discussion that's happening. So that's a question for all of us to contemplate. But also, we would just like to make sure that we don't lose this question around renewable energy sector. So would that become then, if tidal energy comes in June, this comes at the next meeting, likely in September? Would that be the...
I believe that's the idea.
If I may.
Emily Richard.
Yeah, just to elaborate, is that we feel that safeguarding the future of tidal energy in Nova Scotia is probably more pressing at this stage, and if we could have that topic be called for June and then have this topic still not be missed and then bring that back in September is the thought.
Any more discussion? So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary mind? Motion approved. MLA Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion. So I'm holding the Growing Nova Scotia Together document. I think we received it this morning, maybe. And I would like to make a motion that the committee endorse the recommendations in the document.
Discussion? Still looking for it. MLA Taggart.
Well, I apologize. I didn't get it till just now, and that's my fault. But who produced this document?
Federation of Agriculture.
MLA Kerr.
The document was produced by the Federation of Agriculture that was just here. Yeah.
MLA Smith.
Thank you, and I appreciate the members' sentiment towards endorsing it. I'd like to suggest that we make sure that the department has been fully aware of this and maybe follow the same practice that we do in public accounts, which is endorsing the recommendations that have been endorsed by the department.
MLA Kerr?
I would like to continue and go for the motion that I originally proposed.
Any other discussion? MLA Smith?
Just to say that we can't support that without knowing the department's sentiments on this document.
MLA Kerr?
My understanding is the department's seen and processed the document.
Any more discussion?
Emily Taggart?
Well, I just have to say, it's probably very good, but I just can't support it from what little I've seen of this. It's, we have lots of challenges and lots of solutions, and we all want the solutions, but are they, affordable and realistic? I don't know. I haven't had a chance to review it, and so I have to vote against it. Thanks.
Emily Kerr?
I did have time to read it through a couple times, and I would like to make a motion to have the recommendations of the solutions endorsed. We can go to vote.
Still under discussion, Emily McDonald?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chair. So I just scanned through it very quickly, and I will tell you one does concern me. It says amend government procurement policies to require a Nova Scotia first preference to food. Great idea, but until somebody in contracts is going to be able to tell me that we would get in trouble doing it. So I would be a lot more comfortable if the mover would look at this for next month to put in. That gives everybody on the department to give response to it. I just leave that to his, because at this point, that one there just causes the point of you're talking about trade agreements and whatever. So may not be able to do that. So I just like them to give a vetting. They may tell me that you're worried too much onto it, but they're the experts on that one clause than I am. And I just read this today, and I'm also sitting in for a member. So I just give you my comments to the member. That's my concern into it, and I just grabbed one that I was able to find, so thank you.
Emily Coombs.
Yes, to the member Kerr, who made the motion, I'm just wondering, us supporting this is in principle of the matter of what was written in here, and not it's not in the weeds type of endorsement, but we are endorsing in principle as is.
In spirit.
In the spirit, yes. Is that correct?
Emily Kerr.
I would agree. I mean, the thought behind this was in spirit from reading this through a couple times, understanding that the department has been in discussion with the Federation on this. It's not a new document, even though some members haven't had the chance to read it. So I would like to propose the original motion. If it's voted down, I could always propose it again, and otherwise we've got other choices. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We still have a few more speakers. Emily LaChance.
I think wanted to say that, I've, had the pleasure of attending NSFA meetings, and I think all of this is very consistent with their policy proposals, with the motions that were made at the last two annual general meetings, and they have a policy committee. So, I think, we will support the motion in principle, because there is, as MLA Kerr said, there's actually probably nothing new in here, but obviously was consolidated to provide us this overview. And I understand, that certainly Deputy Minister Robichaud has made it very clear here at estimates and other forums that there isn't commitment to getting Nova Scotia products into institutions. So I don't think that recommendation is in opposition to that. So. Mm-hmm.
MLA Taggart.
I'd like to think that there's maybe MLA Kerr, but there's probably nobody in this room as passionate about agriculture as I am. And I mentioned you. Okay? Yeah. I said maybe with the exception. And I don't miss many agriculture meetings of any kind. And this stuff in here that I just love, but I don't see as being realistic, you know. And secondly, we talk about the minister or deputy being involved in you know, or understanding it. But has anybody talked to the Minister of Transportation, you know, or has anybody talked to the Minister of Immigration and whatever, you know what I mean, with respect to foreign farm workers and that sort of thing. So it's, I believe, it's as much as I'd love to, I don't think it's responsible for me to support this at this time without full debate and full understanding from all the different departments that this will have implications on, and we can speak to. It's just, well, I forget what the word was there, but it's just whatever. But you know, I don't know how many times I've been told since in this chair or the chairs across the way, words matter. It doesn't matter how you frame them; it's what you say. And so, in this case, endorse means endorse, and I can't go forward with it. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, my apologies as well. I, too, around this table, and probably not as much as you folks, but I do have a very vested interest in agriculture, and just a couple of these topics that were brought forward, like when Department of Public Works, like, you know, increased funds for rural mitigation program and gravel road capital. So that it does, as my colleague says, encompass very, very many departments, and, you know, amend a government procurement policy when we all know in existence is a procurement contract that's signed. So there's implications there that we may not be able as easily as we would like to amend the policy that quickly. I'm not comfortable that those sort of things can be done until those particular contracts have ceased. Just a few things that, you know, joint-led task force and system-wide farmer-centric, like there's great, as you say, there are great solutions in here, which I think is a giant wish list. So in order to focus in on this, this is a lot to take in on such a short time for me, and I'm not normally as though I am engaged in agriculture, and that's why I want to be here today. For this topic, I too don't feel that I can broad stroke endorse this at this committee without further investigation onto that.
30 seconds.
So.
MLA Smith.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but we run into this countless times at public accounts, where the Auditor General will submit a report and the Auditor General have endorsements in it, and then we're asked to endorse whatever the AG says. And we ran into it last year where we were being asked to support something that the department had analyzed and they had not endorsed. So then PAC can't in good faith tell the department to do something. We can't make decisions on their behalf or endorse it on their behalf.
Meeting is adjourned.